I now call the April 6th, 2021 regular meeting of the City Council to order. Our invocation tonight is given to us by Raul Maya. He is from Centro Cristiano Bethel Church. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I ask that you please rise for the pledge. Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, if you could please take roll.
Miss Elmore?
Present.
Mr. Cahill?
Present.
Miss Kyle? Present. Mr. Skidmore? Mr. Hermes?
Here.
Miss Cahill? Mr. Meyer?
Present.
Miss Skidmore? Here. Miss Nicely?
Present.
Mr. Nipper?
Present.
Miss Reckers?
Here.
Miss Jasper?
Here.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Hoffman. You've received a copy of the minutes from the March 2nd, 2021 regular council meeting, the March 16th, 2021 special council meeting of the ethics training, and the March 16th, 2021 special caucus meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt as presented. Councilmember Hermes and Councilwoman Jasper. Any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. You've also received a copy of tonight's agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to be made?
Mayor, I move we table the first reading of the amended budget ordinance from tonight to have additional discussion and allow us time to have more fully understand the cost of that project and if there's other business sponsors that may want to do that.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. I have a second. All right. Diane. Okay, any discussion?
I'd like it not tabled. So what is the process for that?
We'll just vote in just a second.
Okay.
I do have some more things I would like to talk about. I was going to bring under new business. Is this the time to bring it up before we vote on it?
I think at this point, this is the proper time to bring up for discussion purposes.
Okay. Is that okay if I go ahead?
Oh, Gary.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few comments. I know that when we talked last time, we were potentially authorizing an amount up to $300,000, but not really knowing exactly what the costs of the project are going to be. You know, just for me, that's one of the things that I would like to see is here's, you know, within some contingency, here's the, you know, the project. With all of our other capital projects that we look at, we have a, you know, an estimate of what that might actually cost, and we added a contingency in. This one strays from that, whether it's roads. We wouldn't just say, I'm going to budget $5 million for roads without knowing, what we're doing specifically and what some of those costs might look like, which is the reason that I wanted to, or I'm requesting that we hold off on this one. And it sounds like that there may be some opportunities to have some additional sponsorships. I know that there was just one business mentioned so far, but if there's others, then we could, significantly reduce, the cost that it would take, or it would impact the taxpayer citizens. It sounds like, though, that there is still there's support for the project, and whether that happens in June or July, I don't know that makes a substantial difference.
I think the goal of the additional donations would be much like a grant, where we still allocate the funds necessary within the budget. However, if we receive a grant or donations, then it would just be money that is not spent. I think that was the intent, but you can, Ms. Nice.
Yes. I've done a little bit of research and homework since we met last to see how possibly we could raise some funds. We have a local business that wants to put in a huge amount of money. I spoke with a couple individuals just in conversation and businesses to see if anybody would be interested. Of course, we would want to see if we could send out 400 letters to the businesses, possibly promote it on Facebook for private donors. I also went down to the Lewin Monument to see if we could get some kind of monument or something recognizing the people that would be donating money. One of their plaques runs $800 to $1,000. If we wanted to do any of that, I was just talking to them. It would hold 25 names, so maybe the top 25 people would get recognized if we could attach that. We don't even have to have that, but I was mentioning to them about the engraving, and they possibly said they may be interested in working on the engraving if we recognize them. So I guess my point is, just by a little talking and kicking the wheels around, I've had some private donors that were interested, other businesses that would be interested, and I'm just kind of nervous about putting aside $300,000 of grant money, which is ultimately taxpayers' money, into a fund for this project. It does need to be done, but I'm just, that much is a lot of money, and I think the community and businesses would want to be attached to this. So I was going to promote that later on, so I hope that helps people in maybe holding off on this till we can, I've already got the letter written. It went to the city media. It has not ran through Jack yet, which would be the next step if we want to approve on sending this out to the businesses, and also reaching out with other media avenues for private donors, which I think we could raise a lot of this money. I feel confident of that if maybe we can hold off on this till we could get some feedback. Thank you.
Ms. Jasper.
Just a quick question. So voting for this doesn't mean we can't do the other things?
Of course not.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
And just for clarification, the motion that's on the floor is a motion to table a first reading, that there's been a first and second on it. So I just want clarification that that's the motion that's on the floor.
Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, and I guess one of my concerns was if let's say we approve the $300,000, and then we end up raising $250,000. I'd like to know what, potentially the extra money might be spent on. So for instance, right now, we have some vague concepts of what's going to happen at that location, but let's say that, hey, they decide, hey, we raised we raised $250,000, now let's go spend the $300,000 on other stuff related to that project that we may not necessarily be on board with. So that's where I would like to see just some more details around the project in itself. And I don't think the first go-around when Mr. Hermes was mayor that we got to that point where we had some details, but not, a fully baked project.
Mrs. Kyle. Mrs. Nicely?
I just have one more quick thing. The only thing I think, if we approve for 300,000, it's going to put a hindrance on what donations we may get, because usually people will donate if they see there's a need, not a surplus. And if we already have 300,000 sitting there, if we approve it, it's going to be harder to get donations, I feel, just from experience when I've done fundraising and stuff, because the need's not there. If the need is there, then I think we can raise a good portion of this. I just think if we have 300,000 there and you go to ask people, they're going to go, what do I need to donate for? It's covered. Just what I'm thinking.
Mrs.
Thanks.
Reckers?
We have 13 million, right? Not 300,000. So there is a need. I'm not meaning to disagree with you, Ms. Nicely, but there's been a need for a dozen years, 12 years at least. And the dialogue has been happening for the last 7, and we could always, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, do a municipal order that would say any unused funds would be would go to X instead of Y, right? Wouldn't that be done by a municipal order?
Well, no, I mean, you're doing a budget amendment. This is a first reading tonight to add 300,000 to the public works budget and 60,000 to capital. So, I mean, honestly, you would want to make that if you're going to make that modification, I would make that as a part of this ordinance and then make it a part of this budget amendment. I mean, you certainly could restrict it in the future, right? So theoretically, and again, it's a first reading tonight, so nobody's passing anything tonight, right? It's just a first reading. But, you know, if 30 days down the road, 45 days down the road, if you received grant money, you certainly could do another budget amendment to take the money out of the budget.
Any other discussion? Okay. Mrs. Hoffman, would you mind doing a roll call vote on removing the first reading of the budget amendment, please?
Miss Elmore?
No.
Miss Reckers?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Nicely?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Cahill? Oh, sorry. Mr. Nipper?
No, ma'am.
Miss Jasper?
No.
Miss Kyle? No, ma'am. Miss Skidmore? Mr. Cahill?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Motion fails. Okay, any other additions or changes to the agenda for this evening? All right. Do I have a motion that we adopt as presented? Mrs. Elmore? Mrs. Reckers? Any discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
We have 2 nays. 3 nays. All right, motion carried. All right, so before we get into our special presentation, I want to just introduce Ashley Wilbers. She is sitting in the front row. She has been our intern for the city for the past year. Has it been a year already? And she's going to be graduating from the Ignite Institute very, very soon. So I want to thank her for all of her work. She's still with us for a little bit longer. I think we have her until June 1st. But thanks for being here, and thanks for all your hard work. I think a lot of general government has used you, so thanks for being here. We appreciate it. All right. Our business spotlight this evening is Mr. Gary Williams, Martial Arts. If you'd like to come to the podium and just hit the red button, please. Thanks for being here.
All right, did I do it right? Is it working? Okay, awesome. I'm Gary Williams. I'm the owner of GWMA's Best After School and Summer Camp Programs. This month is our celebrating 30 years in business, and what we do is we change lives in a positive way. I have after-school program. We pick the kids up, bring them to our facility, and we also have summer camp, and we have evening martial arts classes. So I know I'm getting older because the people who used to train with me in my school are now bringing their kids to me. So anyway, our after-school program, as a lot of people knows about us, but we pick the kids up from school. We're like a sports camp. We do karate 2 days a week. We do other physical activities like dodgeball is our favorite. We do noodle hockey. We go putt-putting for summer camp. I mean, it's fun. I always tell everybody, happy kids are healthy kids. So we're getting back in the groove. We went from 60 after-school kids to we're pushing back up to 35, so we're hoping to get that back going good again. Our summer camp, we had 100 in 2019, and I think last year we had 40. So we're moving back up. We're getting back up. Everybody's getting ready to, this year we're already at 40 now. I think 37 right now that we've already signed up for summer camp. But parents drop them off. We open up at 7:30 a.m. for our summer camp program, and then parents pick them up by 6 p.m. Like I said, we do all the physical activities. I don't know about the field trips. We do got one great field trip that we go next door putt-putting. So that's a fun field trip, and we got a great relationship with those guys. So we used to go swimming, but I don't know. Is there any pools going to open up this year that you guys know about? I mean, kids want to do stuff, and I don't know if there's any pools. There used to be a pool right. I can remember when I was across the street, there used to be a pool right here. So members hated us because we bring about 60 kids over, but hey, we had fun. So anyway, like I said, been in business 30 years, and it's ErlangerSummerCamp.com is our website for our summer camp, and then ErlangerAfterschool.com is our after-school program, and then GWMA.net is for our evening program. So if you know anybody that needs a great program, the kids are just happy to be there, and we're also teaching them discipline. We got a great compliment today. I told the kids that are on spring break, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to pay for everybody to go up and we're going to go play putt-putt. The lady said, you have the best kids and the most respectful kids that we love having you guys here. And that's not the only place. We go skating too, and they say the same exact thing. So if you know somebody, anybody's interested in any of our programs, I got the best team. We don't have teenagers watching your kids. We have people that are, I think the youngest that we have is 18 or 19 years old. So we do have LITs, which is leader in training. They help out, but they're in our program. So that's the youngest, but they're with an adult coach. So we have what I'm trying to say is I'm not putting down any other places or anything, but we have adults that are actually with the kids and with them. And we have 3 R's that we teach at our school: respect, responsibility, and right choices. So we're seeing kids grow up to be very successful because I've been in business 30 years and go on to do awesome things. So it's an honor to be able to get to do that. And it was in Ellesmere for a few years, and it's good to be back in Erlanger. Nothing against Ellesmere. I've been in Erlanger for 25 years, I think, but we had to move to Ellesmere for a little bit. Hopefully, I've been run out of. When I say run out, somebody's either bought the building or something. So I asked if I could sign a lifetime lease with the last people, and they only let me do 5 years, but that's okay. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say. And like I said, if you check out our websites, check out our Facebook page too. I have 2 of them, which is Gary Williams Martial Arts and Erlanger's Best After School and Summer Camp Programs. Just go in there and look at the pictures of the happy kids that are in there. They're awesome kids. Some of these kids should be models. Maybe that's what they should do when they grow up. But anyway, that's all I have. I hope that I appreciate you letting me come in. And like I said, it's good to be back in Erlanger. We went to Erlanger in December, and then March hit. So just as we moved, I'm like, man, we were on a roll. But anyway, we'll rebuild and get back up and as a team. And schools are going back to 5 days a week, right? I got a question. I used to do school talks, and are they letting anybody go into the schools now? I didn't think so, but hey, it was worth a shot. what I do is, we do school talks. We go, not to promote my business, but to promote the kid that asked me to come to their school and build them up like a hero. And 9 times out of 10, I get called back to do assembly because they didn't realize they thought we just beat people up. No, ma'am, we don't do that, or sir, we don't do that. We change lives in a positive way. I've been in martial arts 35, 36 years. I've never had to beat anybody up. I hope I never have to. So, but I'm ready if I have to. But anyway, thank you very much, and you guys have a great night. Whoops, let me turn that off.
Thanks so much for being here, and it's good to have you back in Erlanger. Let us know how we can help you. All right. Next on the agenda. Nobody signed up? Okay. All right. So that was public comment. All right, so the mayor's report is the next on the agenda. I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about tonight. So over the last year and a half, Planning and Development Services of Kenton County has gone through transformational changes with a new executive director, Sharmali Reddy, at the helm. Councilmember Gary Meyer has been an integral part of this process, serving as the treasurer of the PDS Management Board. I would like to commend Mr. Meyer for his tireless efforts and attention to detail on this extremely important county-wide endeavor. To have Erlanger at the center of PDS is a tremendous source of pride for our community and positions us as a leader throughout our county. Thank you, Mr. Meyer, for your service to not only Erlanger, but Kenton County as a whole. Thank you. Our Erlanger Salutes the Armed Forces program, which is the banners that run along Commonwealth. That's taken off. We just started advertising within the last couple of weeks. We already have 29 new banners that are going to be displayed in addition to our existing 13 banners. So we had originally had the goal of getting up to 60 banners within a 3-year time period. So this is like amazing. And the time frame to order is still not over. So in order to have your banner displayed by Memorial Day, all orders need to be in by April 23rd. That's going to be the cutoff, the first cutoff. Then any banner applications that we receive between April 24th and June 1st, we're going to display them no later than July 4th. They'll be up and on display. Any orders after June 1st, it'll be for the following year, and we'll have them up by Memorial Day of 2022. So if you guys know of anybody that is interested in the honor banner, please send them to our website. The order form is right there. It's very simple. And then you come in and talk to Rachel at the front desk. She takes the money and gets the picture from you, and we all organize it, and our Public Works team will be putting them up before. And this is another thing I'm very excited to share with you guys before Memorial Day. But I've just gotten word from James from the VFW that the Memorial Day Parade is happening. So he just received the permit to be able to close Dixie Highway. So we are back in business. And I was talking to James, I'm like, let's make it bigger than ever. So we're gonna try and help the VFW as much as possible, get the word out, help them do some advertising, so that they can have good participation in the parade and then good participation along the route. So very excited about that. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about was April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And if you noticed, all of these city buildings are lit blue in honor of this month. So Community Resource Officer Charlie Loudermilk and Police Social Services Coordinator Becky Strauss led this movement. They're trying to bring attention to the alarming fact that for the 3rd straight year in 2019, Kentucky led the nation in child abuse and neglect, ranking number 1 in child maltreatment. Kentucky has ranked in the top 10 for over a decade. We need to start the conversation and make sure that kids know that it's okay to tell a teacher, a parent, or a trusted adult when they hear or see signs of abuse. So please visit the Erlanger PD social media pages for more information and how to recognize these signs. And if you guys have a blue light or have the ability to put a blue light out at your place of business or your home, please do so and spread this important message. All right. That is it for my mayor's report. Mr. Kramer, city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Got a few things tonight. One is a foreclosure update. We haven't kind of covered that, but with the courts opening back up, we went ahead and had our quarterly meeting. And I can tell you over the last, 12, 15 months, the staff and Mr. Gatlin have really made some great success in the properties that have been troubling us for years in Erlanger. And that another property was sold last week, and we received the funds today on that, and it's one that's definitely been ongoing that we discussed last week. So our new process is working, and it's kind of exciting as far as foreclosure can be. But for me, it's exciting. We have 4 properties that we met with last week. Like I said, one of those sold last week, and then we have one that's in the process of getting cleaned up. We've been in contact with the bank. But we do have 2 properties that I am going to request to be added to the April caucus meeting to discuss with council to move forward with foreclosure process. Mr. Gatlin's on one of those properties. He's already engaged the bank who owns it right now, which is probably going to save us a lot of time and money already. So we'll discuss that on April caucus meeting. The next thing is the surplus of the Rescue 74. I sent out an email to council this month to let you know that the Kenton County Regional SWAT Team was interested in it. They requested some information. I discussed it with them. They looked at it. So you'll see there's 2 different surplus municipal orders for council to choose at the end of the meeting. We can, last month I asked you to do an auction for it, so we can just auction it out. The other one would be to transfer to them. They would pay essentially $9,000, not up front. It would be in lieu of 3 years worth of SWAT fees is the offer for that. So I don't know if anybody wants to we can discuss it during legislation, but that's the ask from the SWAT team that we have, I think 5 or 6 on. We have 2 police officers and I think 3 or 4 medics on that team. The next topic is the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the recent stimulus package. Gotten a lot of questions from council and others. Short answer is we really won't know the exact details for a couple of weeks. Depending on who you're looking at, we're getting Erlanger's eligible for $3.5 to $5.6 million, depending on what numbers you're using. There's 4 different criteria to obtain the money as of right now. States are still waiting for clarification from Congress. It's not going to be like the other packages. It will be some set criteria. Most of it is based on showing a financial impact from COVID. So I'll send that out as soon as I get it, but I know a lot of people are wondering when that money is going to come. The one difference is from what they're saying now is half that money will be put into our account within the next 60 days. And then from there, we have to justify using it. So it's definitely a much more complicated situation, and I'll send that out as soon as we know something here. The last thing is kind of another odd situation, but I saw it yesterday in the news, is the Northern Kentucky Medical Examiner. Senator McDaniel has been leading a bipartisan effort to bring the medical examiner back to Northern Kentucky. I know a lot of you probably don't realize that happened, but March 2018, we no longer had a medical examiner in Northern Kentucky. So any autopsies had to be sent to Frankfurt or over 100 miles away just to have autopsies done. And I know a lot of people don't think about this, but it's really a challenge for law enforcement. It's a challenge for those families because your loved one is being transported away. That delays any kind of funerals or any other situations. So That has been approved. I didn't see a timeline on that, but they did approve the funding to get a medical examiner back in Northern Kentucky. So that just like prior to 2018, we're able to handle our own autopsies and move that much quicker. So again, not an exciting thing, but it definitely impacts our staff and the citizens of Erlanger. So I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. Pending your questions, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. All right. Mr. Gatlin, City Attorney's Report.
Just a few things to add to that. Mr. Kramer spoke of several of the things I was going to speak on, but he's more eloquent than I am. So we do have two pieces of legislation on tonight that are second readings. One is to rescind the snow emergency. That is what it is, that we're just taking the snow emergency out of the traffic ordinance so that there would be no requirement to remove vehicles. There would just be strong encouragement to remove vehicles, which on a 78-degree day doesn't seem quite as relevant as it did 6 weeks ago when we were talking about this, right? Second on the legislation is changing of the street name. Erlanger Road is going to change and feed into Sycamore Tree Lane right at the Erlanger Road, Houston Road intersection. And if you recall, the primary reason we're doing this is to aid with GPS because of the amount of trucks that continue along what will now be called Sycamore Tree Lane. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gatlin. All right. We have a report on capital projects and report from department heads. Mr. Glenn, do you want to start?
Thank you for the note on the microphone, whoever put that dot on there. Now I know what button to push. Just a couple things real quick as far as Public Works capital projects are concerned. First would be a couple street projects that we are starting on, which would be Mesa and Hickory. JPS Construction is the contractor on that. One is a leftover project from last calendar year, same budget year. And Hickory, we just recently bid out as well. And JPS Construction has both of those, and they should be starting in about a week or so on that. Veterans War Memorial at the corner of Commonwealth and Dixie, that has been turned over to our operations crews, and they have been in there working diligently on kind of cleaning it up and, trimming some trees and making it look nice and sprucing it up a little bit. And might have a few improvements to suggest and do over time. So from this point forward, I guess the city has taken over the maintenance responsibility of that memorial. Misty Creek Playground installation is underway. So that's something that we're doing in-house. So we bought the equipment out of last year's budget, and with COVID and everything, we didn't get to it last fall, but we're working on it now, and we got everything cut to grade, and it's a couple pieces of playground equipment for different age groups. We're kind of recessing it into the hillside, creating a seat wall for parents to sit and watch their kids play, and some sidewalk improvements and stuff like that. It should be a fantastic improvement to Misty Creek. And the last thing I have to talk about is the decorative tower here on the city building, which is over in this corner here. For those who haven't seen it, we noticed that there were some issues with the stone veneer on it, buckling. So we asked for a budget amendment back at the end of last year and received it, and we've been working with a company to take those loose bricks off, kind of look in, see what's happening. We ended up taking them all off because they weren't installed correctly, and thus giving us insight to the inside of that tower, and found a lot of other issues construction-wise. So we had this company at that point in time also reach out to their structural engineer who came out and did an evaluation of the plans and the construction of the tower. And based on that, you know, they're recommending to safe it up by its removal. So based on that, we're also out getting some other second opinions on it. Also looking at some structural engineers, evaluating the plans, make sure they're up to speed and up to code. And then once we get hear back from that, then if we proceed on, then we'll be looking at the tower, making sure that it was constructed. But either way, no matter what we do, there's a lot of issues out there that we're gonna have to do just to safe it up. Whether it's to leave it in place, and there's some things we have to do to keep the stone veneer in place, or its removal one way or another. It's gonna take some money to get it fixed, and we're gonna be asking for another budget amendment for that tower just to safe it up, and for about $35,000. So that'll be forthcoming. Matt will talk about that. And that's all I have. Any questions? Good news, bad news. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Sherry, would you like to go first?
Sure. I have two requests of council. We are accepting bids for residential waste collection, and the bid opening is going to be April 12th. So we would like to ask for a discussion of the bids that we received at the caucus meeting. And then we also would like to request at the May 4th regular council meeting a municipal order that would award the bid. We are also accepting bids for the electronic document management, which is for our copiers and printers, and that bid opening is also due on April 12th. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Sherry. All right. Emmy Randall, would you like to give us an economic development report, please?
Good evening. Just want to highlight those businesses that received an EDGE incentive from the city of Erlanger this month. Just as a recap, the EDGE incentive is an Erlanger Development Growth and Employment Incentive that's given to businesses that have chosen to either relocate within the city or to expand within the city. And the parameters for receiving the incentive is a capital investment of at least $500,000 and a payroll of at least $750,000. So those businesses that received incentives based on their 2020 payroll are Beacon Orthopedics, Dynamic Catholic Institute, Toyota Bashoku, Arlinghouse Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, Furlong Building Enterprises, and St. Elizabeth Physicians. Those incentives totaled $350,000 for the 2020 incentives that were dispersed. I also would like to note that I'll be requesting an item on the agenda for the caucus meeting, and this will be a piece of legislation to approve a Kentucky Business Investment Incentive for Atlas Air. They're nearing their completion of building construction and anticipate that they'll have employees in the building this year, and that's an incentive that was arranged prior to them coming to the city. So that will need to come before you as an ordinance. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Emmy. All right, Mark Stewart, Building and Zoning and Codes Enforcement.
Well, grass season's here. The guys have, these nice warm rains and now warm weather have really sprouted out the grass, so the guys have been hitting it hard this week. In fact, it's so much that I'm having to take over some of the residential inspections so Sean can focus on this side of town to keep up on everything so it doesn't get the wilds of Erlanger. And building permits have been coming in like fast and crazy too. The first 4 days of April, I've already had half as many as I had all of last month, so it's open season for my department. So but everything's going well so far.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Chief Whitaker.
Good evening. With the bulk of the budget work being behind us now, we've turned up the heat on the accreditation team meetings. We met with strategic advisors, Pat Crowley and Greg Green, who are going to have a big hand in the accreditation process for us, helping us with demographics, some of the history of the department. This is all within that first stage of the community risk assessment standards of cover that the accreditation team is working on. So that's taking a lot of our time. We continue working with skills-based pay incentive program for the employees. I noticed in an email 2 days ago that they opened up a training, driver-operator training through the state. What that means is that these trainings are going to start getting back to, we hope, a normalcy, at least some sort of consistent level, because a lot of our guys were unable to, guys and girls were unable to attend trainings with all of the COVID restrictions, but it appears that we're getting past that point with some trainings opening up, and I know CPR is coming in May. We're starting to redo inspections. What we're doing with some of the business inspections is sort of leaving it up to the owner. I mean, if the owner's not comfortable with our crews in there, we're not forcing our way in the door. But so far, there's been pretty much an open door policy on that. So inspections are starting up as well. Of course, spring brings hose testing. Spring brings hydrants. So all the daily routine on top of everything else. I want to put a push in here for the crews that are participating in the April 25th Fight for Air climb with the American Lung Association. It's taking place at the Great American Ballpark. Currently, our team is 9th overall in fundraising for teams. A couple more and we get Fort Thomas, so they are in my target range. So really like to surpass those folks. So if you would like to make a donation to the team, all the proceeds do go to the American Lung Association. You can go Fight for Air, the climb, April 25th. And those that have made donations to the team, thank you. Any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Where do we make the donations to?
If you search Fight for Air Climb, American Lung Association, it'll bring you to a page. It'll have Cincinnati on there, April 25th. If you click that, it's like 2 clicks. You'll be right there, and it'll show you the top teams. Really simple web page, and you'll be able to go right through there. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Kara Kramer. Give us a finance report, please.
Good evening. We are well on our way for budget, and we have our council retreat on Saturday, April 24th. I believe it starts at 9 a.m. And I also sent out my February, well, it's the March report, but February financials, and our revenue compared to last year in February, we're up 8%, which is good, especially with COVID. So we're doing well with revenue. I always say for budget that we need to be conservative with our revenue because we never know what's going to happen, especially with COVID. And our departments are all within budget. So everybody is doing very well on being fiscally responsible.
Any questions for Kara? All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, and last but certainly not least, Chief Rader, with a police report.
Good evening. First thing we have this week, or this month, I've had it in the last couple monthly reports. You guys have seen that Sergeant Thornberry has been at the National Forensic Academy. I want to thank you guys because that is a big commitment budget-wise. When it's all said and done with, that's about 10 grand that we invest in this training. And Kyle Thornberry he's a young officer, and he will be here for probably the next 20 years. So that is a great investment for the city of Erlanger. The training that he got down there is phenomenal. So thank you for allowing us to invest in that. The only other thing I have, knock on wood, this has been a relatively normal month. As you can see, citations, fraud, and traffic stops are way up. Fraud, I'm sure, hopefully, none of you are or have been the victims, but a lot of the payments from the state with unemployment have really gotten a lot of people. Unfortunately, some of the elderly people tend to fall for these more so than others, and they're really being abused right now is the word I would use. So pass the word. If anybody that you know has questions about a check or any unemployment benefits that they're getting or that they have received in the mail, please reach out to us and we can steer them in the right direction. But with the weather getting warm, we've increased all the traffic in the subdivisions, and that's the reason for the really big increase in citations and stops this month. So, does anybody have any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Next on the agenda is reports of task forces. Are there any reports for tonight? Mrs. Elmore?
During the Parks Master Planning Task Force this evening, we discussed the purpose for the current budget amendment, with the idea being the need to get a jump start on planning. We also walked through the Silver Lake and Rainbow master plans with the focus on Phase 1 of Silver Lake. It was a really productive meeting, really well.
Thank you. Any other task force meeting updates? Mrs. Skidmore?
Kenton County Alliance did not have a meeting today because the kids are on spring break. End of report.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Reckers?
The Small Business Task Force will be having its first meeting of the year Friday at 11 a.m. here in our large conference room.
Wonderful. Our next meeting of the Summer Send-Off Task Force will be May 4th, and I believe that that'll be at 3 o'clock, and that will also be the same day as the next Parks Master Plan meeting at 5 o'clock. So we got a lot of stuff going on, so please check the website, check our Facebook page, just in case anybody wants to be a part of some of these task forces. There's a lot of awesome things happening within our city. All right. Next on the agenda are bids. Mrs. Hoffman, are there any bids tonight?
Mr. Glenn has some.
Thank you.
Okay, here's what's next. Row Court and Terrace Drive, both those projects were bid out this past month. Might need my glasses on for this one. Humphrey Concrete was the low bidder of 5 bids for a total of $159,262. And that was well within our budget, and we are capable of moving forward with that project. And that will be starting here shortly as well. The next one is a city beautification project. Beaumont Building Group was the low bidder on the Stevenson Turkey Foot Road Gateway Signage Project. So those of you that seen the black 4-board horse fence go up at that intersection maybe 6-8 months ago, this is the next phase of that, which would be putting the actual gateway signage in there and landscaping and so on and so forth. And they were low bidder at $37,010.50. And they were one of 2 bidders, and we have the funding to move forward with that project as well. Silver Lake Phase 1. That is our park improvement project at Silver Lake Park. We had 3 bidders for that project. Wriggler Blacktop Incorporated was low bidder. Their bid amount was $235,014.75. And again, that was within budget, and we have the money to cover that, and we're going to move forward with that project. Lastly is parking lot improvement project, which would be overlaying the depot parking lot, Spring Valley, and both parking lots at Flagship. Paul Michaels and Son Incorporated was low bidder of 5 bids at $96,706.25. Again, it was within budget, and we're moving forward. Does anybody have any questions on any of those projects? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Lots of awesome stuff coming up within the next couple of months. It's very exciting. All right. Next on the agenda, any unfinished business? Okay. How about new business? We have one agenda item. Tom?
Yes, so just wanted to have a discussion about the Public Works property. We ran into a few issues that have brought some obstacles, some roadblocks, but also some opportunities. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Kramer for some discussion.
Thank you, Tom. So we've sent out some emails to council, but just kind of wanted to recap over the last 2 months. We've definitely pivoted multiple times, Peter and I, in the planning of not only Public Works, but the facility master plan that we've worked hard on over the last year. Initially, as most of you know, the PCA's plans for the railroad depot, having a 2-story structure down there, wasn't financially feasible once we started actually looking into that plan. Now that made us change direction and look at a different building on that property. And in the middle of looking at that option, we've recently had some opportunities to purchase land that would accommodate not only Public Works, but also our master plan of a future city building and police department. So that's what we've been kind of working on the last couple weeks, to kind of do a feasibility study to see if that is something that we can do. If that is something that is agreeable to council, this would impact the lease agreement that we were asking for council to approve for next door for Public Works. If, like I said, if the land purchase is agreeable, that would require us not to use that lease, because it would speed up another opportunity for Public Works. So moving forward, Tom, if you want to.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the regular session and move into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.18(1)B to discuss the future acquisition or sale of real property.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second by Mr. Hermes. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. We'll adjourn for executive session.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Cahill.
I'd like to make a motion to allow Mr. Kramer and the mayor to negotiate for the acquisition of property for the city of Erlanger.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Mrs. Reckers, any discussion? All right. All right, all in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. All right, next on the agenda is legislation.
All right, first we have an ordinance of the City of Erlanger to repeal Section 7202 of the Erlanger Code of Ordinances related to snow emergencies. What has been struck through is what is being removed, and you can see that we are removing all of 7202 snow emergency as well as the references to snow emergencies in 7205. This is a second reading.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order, or this ordinance as read? Mr. Nipper and Mrs. Reckers, any discussion? Okay. We'll need a roll call vote, please, Mrs. Hoffman.
Mr. Skidmore? Miss Elmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Reckers?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Nicely?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Nipper?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Jasper?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, motion carried.
All right, next we have an ordinance of the City of Erlanger renaming part of Erlanger Road Sycamore Tree Lane. As discussed earlier, that said road line to the northwest of the Erlanger Road Houston Road intersection within the city limits shall be now named Sycamore Tree Lane, and it extends to the existing, Sycamore Tree Lane. This is a second reading.
Do I entertain that we adopt this ordinance as read? Mrs. Elmore? Mrs. Jasper? Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please, Mrs. Hoffman.
Mr. Hermes?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Jasper?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nipper?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Nicely?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Reckers?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Elmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Motion carried.
All right, next we have an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, amending Erlanger ordinance numbers 2498, 2512, and 2513 in the budget adopted thereby for the City of Erlanger for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2020 and ending on June 30, 2021. You can see the Google Docs that are attached, and this budget amendment moves $300,000 to Public Works and $60,000 to the Capital Fund, adding $300,000 to Public Works from General Government, and then in the estimated fund balance end of fiscal year, moving $60,000 from General Fund to Capital Fund. This is just a first reading.
Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, if you can make note of the first reading, please.
Could I have a quick comment on that? With what Mr. Glenn had mentioned earlier, and also Mr. Kramer's email on from yesterday, should we amend that amount to include the dollar amount that's necessary to fix the, or whatever repair, or whatever we're going to be doing to the tower, $35,000?
Yeah, that would be very beneficial because, I mean, honestly, we don't have the money in the budget right now to do anything further than what we've already put into it. I think right now we're at 16,000 as it is precariously standing. For the demo cost alone was 36,000 is the one bid that we received last week to demo it. So I think 35,000 would allow us to make it safe, and then we would put whatever our reconstruction plans is for next budget. because that's an unknown right now. I just don't know what it's going to be to repair it to some level. We don't plan on keeping the tower, but it is a part of the building structure, so we're going to have to do something with it. We just don't know until we tear it down or we figure out another solution. We don't know exactly what the rebuild's going to be. But $35,000 would get us to the end of the year and make the property safe.
Mr. Gatlin, can we add that from the floor on a first reading?
I mean, council can do whatever they want to do. You know, obviously, we passed, this council passed a municipal order probably 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, that we wanted to limit these situations, right? And limit what I would say floor amendments on first readings. We've done the first reading. So I think from a practical matter, we wouldn't be amending this. I think if council wanted to present a first reading, and theoretically, you would have to have it added to the agenda, so you'd have a motion and second to add a new first reading to the agenda, and we could do a new first reading adding the $35,000. And then we would have both the ordinances for second reading at the next meeting, okay? And then we could do an amendment to that agenda to remove the $300,000 one from that meeting.
Can I take a nap?
Well, I mean,
It's really
again,
complicated. You're saying we're going to add it right now?
well, isn't that what you're saying?
Okay, but we're going to motion and second to add that to
Well,
the
I
agenda
mean,
first.
we have rules of procedure that kind of say we can't do this.
Okay.
So if you want to do it, I think it has to come from council, and we're going to have to amend the agenda to do a new first reading for, you know, because it's in essence a new ordinance. We just did a first reading. We can't we can't hit rewind and say, let's do over that first reading we just had, right?
Okay.
If I could just clarify, though, real quick, that, you know, I understand this is a last-minute thing, and this was not, if we knew about this a couple weeks ago, obviously we would have added this. This information is like 72 hours old. You know, we originally had an estimate to repair it. Once they started breaking it apart, they were all appalled at what they were seeing. They finished that part of the job, and they're refusing to do anything. The contractor we have right now are refusing to do anything but demolish it, because they're not going to be liable for any of the structure. So, you know, this is definitely not typical, like Mr. Gatlin said. This is not how the staff usually does business, but it's something that we have to take care of, and it's an emergency, which is why initially the $35,000, even though it's over KRS bid, I can easily justify that as an emergency, which allows us to move forward without bidding this out, because we don't have time to bid this out per KRS because of the lack of integrity of the structure.
I mean, I've looked at it pretty closely, and I've heard some of the recommendations and things to that effect, and I know that this is justified, and I would certainly welcome other council members to go out there and take a look at it. There is yellow tape around it, you know, keep you at a safe distance, but even from that distance, it's easy to see that there's a major problem with the original construction. So with that being said, then I guess I would make a motion that we add an item to the agenda, which would be a fiscal year 21 amended budget that would include the $35,000 that would be required to make the tower safe.
I'm not going to disagree with the need to do the work, but are we amending the agenda after we've already approved the agenda?
You absolutely are.
Well, I mean, but is that it just feels like a strange practice.
If all of council agrees to do it.
So that's something that we can't, okay.
Yeah, you can, I mean, you could do whatever you want,
So
theoretically.
then, is there a need to have the approval of the agenda even on, if we're not going to adhere to, you know, what that is?
Again, you have a council member who's made a motion to add an item. It's now needing a second.
Yeah, I mean, again, as Mr. Kramer had mentioned, this information's 24 hours old.
Mrs. Reckers?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add
be a-
amended?
No, it's not an amended. We're doing a new first reading of a budget amendment for 395,000, right? 335,000. 395,000. Yeah.
So it's 300,000, 60,000, and 35,000.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Move to Public Works.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion carried.
All right, we do another first reading, and I'm sorry for the complexities here. So we'll do another first reading, an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, amending Erlanger ordinance numbers 2498, 2512, and 2513, and the budget adopted thereby for the City of Erlanger for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2020, and ending on June 30th, 2021. This is a first reading, which will put $335,000 will be moved to the Public Works budget and $60,000 to the capital fund budget. This is a first reading.
Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, if you could make notes in the minutes, please.
All right, next we have the, I'm expecting a motion to table municipal order number 4.
Mr. Cahill, you'd like to table. We have a motion on the floor to table. Mrs. Jasper, we have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have some discussion about this one. Why do we not want, I mean, I know what we're talking about with potential acquisition of property, but that, I didn't think that would alleviate needing to get people out of the office if it was that urgent that we were doing it now. I'm confused at that.
Right.
So either it is a critical issue and we need to do it now, or we really didn't need to do it and
Right.
we're going to hold off for some undetermined amount of time.
Yeah, we've done more research on the facility down there, and we can stabilize it for a year with $20,000. Once we start getting into the mold mitigation and securing up the back wall, enough to get us through this property acquisition. So initially my ask was going to be go ahead and approve that in case that changes over this next month.
I screwed up there.
What's that?
Do you want to move forward with municipal order 4?
Yeah, we can table it. I don't think that's, it's not something we're going to need to do in the next 30 days because there are a lot of moving parts right now. But Peter has and the staff has looked at this, and they feel they're pretty confident within $20,000 they can mitigate what's down there, reinforce the wall that they need to, and still be okay for the next year.
That's 180 degrees of the position that was taken when we said, we can't do anything down there, we're not going to spend any more money, it doesn't make sense to be there, we've got to get them out now. I'm just confused as to, are we getting the truth now, or were we just getting sold something before so that we could get what you wanted?
Well, we don't want to move staff out of that property, but at the time that we were looking at that last month, that was our best course of action to move forward. With everything changing right now, it doesn't make sense to spend the money on the lease when we can try to stabilize
on a
that
one-year
situation
lease.
down there. What's that, correct?
On a 1-year lease.
Correct. It wouldn't just be a 1 year, and we talked about that. The chances of us doing it just for 12 months was pretty limited. It would be a month to month after that, which the price would go up. So we're just trying to be fiscally responsible on that end of it.
So we have a motion on the floor to table this municipal order. Is there a second? Diana? Okay, so we have a motion by...
No, I think there was already a first and a second, right? We're in discussion.
Okay, oh, that's right, sorry. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carried.
All right, next we have the two municipal orders as it relates to surplusing one property. So I think we, here's how I think we're going to handle it. So I'm first going to, since the unique request was to transfer it to SWAT, I'm going to read that municipal order first, and if it passes, we won't move on to the second municipal order because we can't surplus the same thing twice. Does that seem to make sense? So the first is a municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, making the written determinations required by KRS 82083 for the sale or other disposition of property owned by the city. This would be a 2003 Spartan Rescue truck that is not now needed or beneficial to the city, and the disposition method would be to transfer to another governmental agency pursuant to KRS 82083, which would be, as was discussed, transferred to SWAT. This requires a motion, second, and a vote.
Mr. Nipper, Mrs. Reckers? Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. Is that it for legislation, Mr. Gatlin? Okay. All right. Are there any announcements for this evening? All right. Do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Mrs. Elmore, Mrs. Nicely? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed?